in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 2 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 3. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A convoy of protest trucks made their way along the Airport Parkway, now circling the arrival and departures roadways at Ottawa International. Councillor Sean Menard tweeting about this airport disruption this morning. There doesn't appear to be any specific purpose other than to delay those either flying out today or maybe meeting someone at the airport. Now, Ottawa police are telling protesters clogging the nation's capital, clear the streets, or risk being charged criminally.
The warning comes after nearly 2 weeks into the anti-vaccine mandate protest that has gridlocked Ottawa's downtown. Police say in a statement that demonstrators must stop blocking streets or face the possibility of being charged with mischief to property. The police also warn that protesters' vehicles and other property may be seized and possibly forfeit. They say charges or convictions related to unlawful activity associated with the demonstrations may lead those people to being barred from traveling to the United States. The move comes after Ottawa officials held talks with the federal government to find solutions to end the protests. Laura Osmond, The Canadian Press, Ottawa.
City News Time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Light wet snow at times for us, a southwest wind, the high near 2 degrees, well above average. Chance of flurries tonight, low -8, and for tomorrow, light snow, a couple of centimeters could accumulate, the high near +1. For today, the high 2.
And right now in Ottawa, 2 degrees. It's 3 in Smiths Falls. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says he is willing to meet with those who are taking part in this truck convoy demonstration, but it comes with a few conditions. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Mayor Jim Watson says he would be happy to meet with those involved with the truck convoy demonstration, but only after all trucks are removed from the downtown core. He explains why he won't meet with protesters until the trucks make an exit from the downtown area.
I'm not going to reward bad behavior by giving them a meeting that they would use for political purposes. If there's nothing in it for the city or the citizens of this community that have suffered greatly as a result of their outrageous behavior.
While willing to meet with those involved with the convoy, Watson admits he isn't sure what it would accomplish since the mandates being protested fall under federal and provincial jurisdiction. Watson adds the fact that many haven't left the capital is causing a great stress on the community and costing a small fortune in tax dollars. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News Time, 9:02.
The Beijing 2022 Olympic Games.
Ottawa's Isabelle Weideman is celebrating her second medal at the Beijing Games. The Orleans-born speed skater took silver in the 5,000 meters this morning, winning Canada's first medal of the Games as well. That was a bronze back in the 3,000-meter race. Councillor Tim Tierney tweeting this morning, Beacon Hill and Ottawa screaming with joy. That makes 2 medals for Izzy. Canada's mixed aerials team of Marion Thénault, Mia Fontaine, and Louis Irving has won a bronze. It was a photo finish as well for Elliot Grandin. In men's snowboard cross, he lunged across the finish line, 2/100ths of a second behind the winner from Austria to claim silver. That was Canada's 4th snowboard medal. And just a few minutes before that, Toronto's Jack Crawford held on to 3rd in men's alpine combined to win bronze there. Ontario's top doctor set to hold a pandemic briefing today. Dr. Kieran Moore's weekly COVID-19 media briefing comes a day after the province's health minister says Ontario will keep the mask mandate and vaccine certificate system in place. Christine Elliott said Ontario will not follow the lead of other provinces. They've already begun lifting proof of vaccination rules and intend to end masking rules soon. She didn't say when those policies would end, but said the province expects mask rules will remain in place for some time. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thursday already. My goodness, it's flying by. Much of it is a blur. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Another day of following all the big news. Getting your views on all the big news. Coming up, author And Post media columnist Randall Denley. Randall had a column in the National Post this week calling the response to the Freedom Convoy a stunning failure of leadership. And he lays it all at the feet of the police chief, the mayor, and the prime minister. In his opinion, they are the reason we are in the situation we are in, almost 2 weeks after the first trucks rolled down Wellington Street. Then, coming up at 9:30 this morning, it's Ontario Politics This Week. And what a week. What a week. What a week. What a week. I had the leader of the Liberal Party on the program yesterday, Stephen Del Duca. He was in town yesterday, meeting with some local business owners, been hard hit by the convoy's arrival in the capital, business either way down or business closed altogether. Rideau Center closed, 1,500 people work there, and a lot of people are thinking, where's Doug Ford? What's Doug Ford going to do about this? What can Doug Ford do about this? Can he do anything about this? Here in Eastern Ontario, we wonder, does the Premier of Ontario care about Ottawa at all? Does he even appreciate the situation here? Or does he view what's happening in Ottawa as Jim Watson's problem? It's Ottawa's problem, or it's the federal government's problem, because it's Ottawa. I mean, he was fast off the mark when the protest came to Toronto. And he's been quick to issue statements, as well he should, he's the Premier, right, about the situation in Windsor, which has now become even more of a shambles because there is, I guess, a similar blockade on the highway approaching the bridge to Sarnia, in the Sarnia area. And all of this is hitting Ontario's most important industry, which is the auto sector. So we have Ford Motor Company has idled an engine plant. Stellantis, which is, we used to call that Chrysler. Stellantis, down 2 shifts at the assembly plant in Windsor. And Toyota having big issues as well at its factories in Ontario where they make the RAV4 and some of the Lexus SUVs. So I mean, big problems, right? Big problems. Big problems that could only get bigger the longer this goes on. I mean, we're talking something like $400 million worth of cross-border trade a day between Canada and the U.S. through the Windsor crossing alone. So we'll talk about that angle of the story with our weekly panelists, Andrew Brander, Lindsay Maskell, coming up on Ontario this week, Ontario Politics This Week. Well, also, David has a clip here of Christine Elliott, health minister, talk about what she said yesterday during her briefing that was supposed to be about rapid tests. But she said yesterday that the mask mandate and the need for the vaccine passport, that's not going away anytime soon. Roll tape.
Well, we've already set out our opening timelines. We started on January 31st. The next phase is as of February 21st and then March 14th. We have no plans currently to drop the passport vaccination situation or masking. We believe that masking is going to be important for some time to come.
Masking will be important for some time to come. Now, the CBC is reporting this morning, its legislative bureau, the Queen's Park Bureau there, the correspondent there, his name is Mike Crawley, and he's reporting that they might be looking at speeding things up, actually, when it comes to loosening some restrictions. Remember, we're going at this in kind of 3-week stages, right? You open up a little bit and then wait 3 weeks. And then the next stage is supposed to begin just after the Family Day long weekend, February 21st. And then you wait another 3 weeks. And if things still look okay, then you open up a little bit more. And that takes you out to the middle of March. So according to that CBC News report, maybe the government is thinking about speeding things up. But if you do that, how does that look? I mean, does it look like you've kind of given into these protesters' demands? Would there be a political price to pay for that? Hey, maybe some people would applaud that. given the Angus Reid survey that was released. So we're going to get into that. And I have to get into a story. It's just been totally drowned out by all the noise of the convoy, but it's so important. And that's the housing affordability report that was released this week by the Housing Affordability Task Force that was created by the Ford government. Man, oh man, lots of big things in this report. Could mean massive ramifications for just about every kind of neighborhood in the province. This report says Ontario needs to find a way to build 1.5 million housing units in the next 10 years. And it could mean that municipalities would lose a lot of control over the planning process, and that, some of that would be taken over by the provincial government. So how's that for a busy first hour of the Rob Snow Show? My goodness. Then, after the 11 o'clock news, some city councilors are going to join us. We may have 3 city councilors on the show this morning. I know Carol Ann Meehan is confirmed, and Matthew Fleury is confirmed. So I'm looking forward to that. And we may or may not be joined by Riley Brockington, the councillor for River Ward. He's just kind of firming up his own schedule. And we're going to kick around the issues that we've been kicking around for 2 weeks here in the nation's capital. A regular city council meeting yesterday. I think most of the councillors were eager to ask questions to the senior staff at the end of the meeting. That was actually, I think, longer than the actual city council meeting. The city manager was there taking questions, and the city solicitor. A lot of questions for the city solicitor about going to court and getting an injunction and what would be involved with that. What's being done now? What more can we do? Why aren't we in court? What's involved with that whole process? These kinds of things. So we're going to get a sense of where they think we are right now, where this goes from here. How can the city resolve this situation? Can the city resolve this situation? What kind of help is going to be needed from the upper levels of government? What's been provided so far? So cover all of that. And we'll do the talkback hour. Been doing that all week. We'll do it again today between 10 and 11 o'clock at 750-1310. Do it again today. Do it again tomorrow. We'll see how today goes. We have this situation in Ottawa. It's the epicenter of it all. The fight for freedom. Right? And we have now these solidarity convoys in other parts of the country. The Coutts, Alberta border crossing, that is still very much a live situation. Mentioned Windsor, Detroit, Sarnia, Blue Water Bridge. And the protesters, just like here, say, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. So what do you do? What do you do, right? I have no idea. I'm just a guy doing a radio show. What do you do? How do you end something like this? I have no idea. I never thought it would last 2 weeks. I thought it was going to last 2 days. And then everybody would go home. Now I have no idea when it's going to end. I'm not making any plans. The police chief here in Ottawa, Chief Slowly, he has told us there might not even be a policing solution to this. He needs, he says, 1,800 more bodies just to kind of even things out. Then you have on the front page of the, front page, Ottawa Citizen. Below the fold, police turn up heat with threat of arrest charges. Reinforcements expected to be in city by weekend. But when you read this, there's this. Meanwhile, Benjamin Dichter, quoting here, Vice President of the Freedom Convoy 2022 group, said at a media conference Wednesday, Another massive convoy of 1,000 to 1,500 trucks was on the way to Ottawa from Alberta. Are those just more head games? You know, they played head games with the news media yesterday. Maybe it's just more head games. I don't know. Who knows at this point? Certainly not me. I would like to know how you think all of this can come to an end peacefully. Let's kick that around this morning. Rob Snow Show, City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa Mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups. And we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's great to have back on the Rob Snow Show on City News author and post-media columnist Randall Denley. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. So let's talk about the response by those in position of authority as we approach 2 weeks of the Freedom Convoy here in the nation's capital. What have you thought of the job of the Ottawa Police Chief Peter Sloly?
Well, he's certainly not entirely to blame, but we're really lacking any kind of plan, any kind of significant action from him. I mean, they announced a big thing. We're going to be confiscating this fuel. Okay. And then, the next day, while he's talking about this, at a special council meeting, we see all kinds of people wandering around downtown carrying cans of fuel and police standing there looking at them. And it's diabolical, Rob. I mean, Diane Dean's mind is just exploding over this. It's some kind of international conspiracy because these people are so clever. They put water in some cans and fuel in the other. I mean, how in the world could you ever deal with a situation that complex? I don't know, maybe confiscate all of the cans. How about that? But it also, the idea that I can't do anything. I've got 1,200 police officers. What could 1,200 police officers do? I need 1,800 more people. That's what I need. And to do what, though? He didn't really say. 1,800 people, what are they going to do? Are they going to make a bigger crowd to watch people walk by and do whatever they like? It's very frustrating, and it's, Ottawa very seldom gets international attention, but we're getting it right now. And we look really stupid. And our police in particular look really stupid. I got a lot of respect for the police, but I'm afraid the chief hasn't taken a very dynamic approach to this. I mean, first, he should have been blocking these trucks from coming into the city before they ever got here. Narrow it down, park them on LeBreton, maybe, let them single file of trucks moving through Wellington Street, but don't let them seize your downtown. Big strategic mistake, and now it's going to be hard to get out of it. So I think most of the things the police have done have been wrong so far, with the exception that, big violence hasn't erupted. I'm not sure it was ever going to, but somehow that's always the fear that's held in abeyance. Well, if we did anything, big violence.
Okay. What about the mayor?
He's stamping his foot and insisting they go away. Numerous times in his little inspirational messages from at home here, he's talking about they've got these bouncy castles, they've got saunas, they've got hot tubs. It's just the most outrageous thing he's ever seen. They're here and they're having a good time, basically. Ottawa, it's just not something we do. His big downfall, I think, Rob, at this point is that the city has not moved to get an injunction. Councillors are finally, belatedly, nearly 2 weeks in, starting to press for it, but they haven't done it. And their lawyers' advice basically is, well, you really got to think about this carefully. We might lose. Well, maybe you would, but I think you can make a pretty good case now that these demonstrators have had their opportunity to exercise a freedom of speech extensively. Do they have a right to block the city indefinitely over freedom of speech? I think that would be an unreasonable position. And I thought the city administration was put to shame by the fact that this 21-year-old woman from downtown got some lawyers, went to court, and got the horn stopped.
And won, yeah.
Yeah, how hard was that?
Yeah.
That would have been a big thing the city could have done quite early on. And people would say, okay, all right, thanks, you've done something meaningful. Well, they didn't do that. It took an individual to do that. So,
it wasn't the machinery of government that ended the horn honking, right?
No, and unfortunately, this really tells us a lot, I think, about the machinery of government here. We're slow to act. We like to have, committees. We like to reach out to our partners, deliberate. We don't do anything quickly. And in a case like this, quick action was required and is still required. But quick action just isn't a thing that we do. And I think the value of the injunction is that if you get it, then you can say to the people who still have trucks downtown, okay, move out or you're in contempt of court. These are people who say they respect law and all that kind of stuff, and most, small C conservative people do. So now you have to decide, do I want to be charged with contempt of court? Or am I going to say, I fought a great fight, I had a wonderful protest, I sparked international action, huge success. Different provinces are saying they're, removing their restrictions. Declare victory and go home.
Yeah. Or go to Toronto, or go to Montreal, or go to Quebec City, or whatever. Right? Or, Sarnia, or Windsor, or wherever else all of this is going on.
Timmins
right?
would be a good spot at this time of year.
So, anyway, So slow off the mark there. Okay, so, let's move, as you mentioned, we're a federal government town. It's the parliamentary precinct. It's the parliament buildings that everybody sees on television, on Fox News. What about the Prime Minister? What do you think about that?
Yeah, what about him, eh? he started to, pour some gasoline on the fire before they got there, and he's pretty much just continued that right up till now because he's the prime minister, Rob, and no one tells him what to do. He is an absolute ruler in this country, and that's just the way it is. What are these people? They don't understand this? You're even seeing now, people in his own caucus starting to break with him and speak out over the approach he's taking. It's so rigid and out of date on the pandemic, but the Liberals have done nothing to help us, really. Okay, yeah, they provided, some RCMP officers so they can assist the Ottawa Police in doing nothing, but what have they really done? It took till early this week before we started to hear anything from local Liberals about it. You would have hoped that our local representatives would have been the people pressing their own government in whatever way it took, publicly, otherwise, to say, this is a big problem for the city of Ottawa, the one the government's in, right in front of your face. We need to do something. And Trudeau likes to put himself out as a tough guy, so...
Yeah, because it's not just Ottawa that looks bad. It's Canada that looks bad, right?
Yeah, so. He had the positive COVID test, and so he was in isolation for a while, but then even after he wasn't in isolation, he was sheltering at an undisclosed location for his own security. I think that's what we would call hiding in plain language. I mean, it's debatable whether he personally should be going out and speaking to these leaders, but he should send somebody out. It's part of what they want. He's just somebody to listen to what they have to say. I think that's a big win for them if somebody from the federal government, a minister, maybe a small group of ministers, would sit down and say, look, just here's how we see it. You tell us how you see it.
Yeah.
You can see these, conditions and mandates are coming off. It's going to take a bit of time. But we all want to get to the same place. I think that's what we're losing in a lot of this discussion is that what they want with the removal of vaccine mandates is going to happen. Most people want it. It's not, some kind of crazy talk, but the federal government, to me, is caught in the time warp here. Oh, yeah, it's vital that, we don't have any unvaccinated truckers crossing the border. It's vital that every Canadian come back in with a clear test. Like, why? We have lots of COVID here. If someone comes in with COVID, it's not going to upset the balance in any respect, but they just seem to want more and more regulation. I mean, now they're talking about interprovincial.
Interprovincial, yeah.
They've already got the planes in the country. They got the trains. Yeah. Anything they can restrict. And in Trudeau's mind, apparently, according to what he says, no, we need mandates. Mandates will prevent a lockdown. He just can't seem to envision the point we're going to reach fairly soon where people think, okay, it's the problem, but it's not a shut down the economy problem. It's not a restrict people problem. So let's try to go back to as much of a normal life as we can have. You think a politician would want to get to that point? Then he can start boasting what a great job he did. And look at here we are today. Thanks to all the efforts of the Prime Minister, and I did this, I did that. Look what I've achieved. Instead, he seems to want to prolong this, and I think he sees cheap political advantage in the fact that he thinks he's caught the Conservatives on the wrong side of the issue. Let's just keep hammering away. I mean, what's the point? There's no imminent election. Their leader's already quit. This is the time for him to be a little bit bigger than he normally is and say, hey, look, these people, I don't agree with them, but, they're not the only ones who think this way, and I'm going to listen to what they have to say. Directly or indirectly, I'm going to listen to it. Instead of just attacking them personally continuously. That is not an effective approach.
Okay. Thank you, Randall.
Rob, I think, the leadership locally is doing an excellent job.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Denley.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye. Bye. Speak soon. Randall Denley, read his work this week in the Ottawa Citizen and the National Post. Ontario Politics This Week is coming up right after the 9:30 news here on The Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 2 degrees, in Smiths Falls, 3. And here's what's making news this hour. A portion of the truckers' protest convoy was on the move this morning, not out of town, but to the airport. A line of trucks heading along the airport parkway reached the airport, then began circling the routes normally used by those passing in front of the arrivals and departure doors. Ottawa Police also tweeting today, officers able to negotiate a dozen trucks to leave RCGT parking lot on Coventry. 10 trucks also left from Bank and Laurier area, destination unknown. Police do say one protest truck was towed from around the area of Nepean and Bank. An incredible Olympics for Izzy. Isabel Weideman has Beacon Hill and Ottawa cheering, according to a tweet from Councillor Tim Tierney. Weideman won her second medal of these games, following up Canada's first medal, which she won. That was a bronze in the 3,000 speed skating event, and now has a silver medal in the 5,000. Canada also won medals today on the hill in combined alpine and snowboard. Province's top doctor, Kieran Moore, will give a weekly briefing today. This comes after the province began making rapid test kits available at free from grocery stores, pharmacies, and other sites. Christine Elliott, the health minister, says expanding access to the tests is part of the province's plan to roll back COVID-19 restrictions in stages. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Okay, let's launch right into Ontario politics this week. Lindsay Maskell's a Liberal strategist, former advisor to Premier McGuinty. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Lindsay. Great to hear from you. Vice President. I still have my old script here, Andrew. I'm sorry. It's Vice President now, right? Crestview Strategy, former advisor to the Ford government. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning,
Great
Andrew.
to be here.
Yeah. Everybody's well? Everybody's well? Yes?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Yes. Tomorrow is the 2-week point of the Freedom Convoy's arrival in Ottawa, and let me tell you what a 2 weeks it has been. Meantime, we have another blockade that has shut down the critical Windsor-Detroit border crossing. There is a solidarity protest as well happening on the way to the crossing at Sarnia. And all of this is happening on Premier Doug Ford's watch, as much as it's happening on Prime Minister Trudeau's watch and Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson's watch, but also on Doug Ford's watch. When it comes to the Premier, Lindsay, what can Doug Ford do about it?
Well, first thing, it has been that he has been notably absent, right? So that has been the most obvious piece of this. But there's actually things concrete actions that he can do that he has not done, that he's actually done with other protesters. For example, when he did do the commercial license fines against the one-day protest that happened with the tow truck drivers. So he's actually used some of the mechanisms he has at his disposal and in his toolbox before of basically having the truckers and people with commercial licenses move their vehicles, because the big impact of that commercial fine also includes the ability to not go to the States. So there's a big tool in the toolbox with actually doing real fines. The other thing is that if it's people who don't have a commercial license, we're seeing a lot of it as just pickup trucks, particularly now on the Windsor border, is you can actually recall the legislature and change the fine, the fines and the penalties for blocking a border, right? So there's a lot of tools in the toolbox for specific things that if you do not have the vehicles or tow trucks to move them, people will move. It's going to impact their livelihood, their mobility, or financially have a big impact on them. But more importantly, I think we need to be people should be seeing their premier being out in support of the people highly impacted by this.
More visible.
Families that live in the area in Ottawa, businesses hugely impacted, thinking about them, providing a support program to those businesses that are shuttered. You got COVID supports if you couldn't work because of a lockdown. You're locked down and locked out of your employment because of this protest. So should they be getting some financial relief for the impacts of this protest? And also the part that, in huge economic impacts and globally, really, with this Windsor Crossing issue happening, that, there are so many businesses, so many supply chains, auto manufacturers, parts, huge lockouts. The fact that the Premier has been invisible should be concerning to people.
Okay. What can Premier Ford do about these protests, in your opinion, Andrew Brander?
Well, I'd agree with Lindsay. There's two questions here. What can he do, and what does he want to be seen to be doing, I suppose.
Okay.
And Lindsay mentioned a number of tools at the Premier's disposal. I would say, comparing this situation to really anything else is probably a little apples and oranges. So I'd hesitate in terms of doing that. If we wanted to make other comparisons, we can talk about other times that the Ontario Conservatives have directed police to do things and how poorly those have ended. So I mean, in that context,
Ipperwash, for example, or something.
I didn't want to name that.
No, it's fine.
But,
it's fine.
I mean that's exactly it. So let's be clear. Doug Ford wants nothing to do with this. He doesn't want to be seen as involved. He has said the right things when needed to in response. But if he is going to be involved in this, it's going to be after he's dragged in kicking and screaming. This does nothing for him politically. Some of the biggest sympathizers with these protesters, with this movement, are people who have been most impacted. Lindsay mentions the small business owners, which, yes, I see the irony in that. But, I mean, these were all people who also, in large part, came out to vote for Doug Ford in the last election. And, the folks in Ottawa and the folks now at the Ambassador Bridge have actually seemed to take issue just as much with the provincial mandates as the ones being brought in by the federal government. So, why on earth would he want to redirect the attention that is being squarely focused on the federal government right now at him at all? So, I mean, in that vein,
but now Ontario's most important industry is in harm's way here because of these demonstrations.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think that he's
going to have to, okay, the Ottawa thing.
Yeah.
I suppose he could say, well, that's an Ottawa thing, whatever. I think he should have been more visible in the last 2 weeks and should have said more. But nevertheless, he has a Ford factory that's idled. Toyota's not making any cars this week. Stellantis has cut 2 shifts. I mean, this is the bread and butter of Ontario here.
Yeah, and his statement yesterday was very carefully worded to focus on the blockade of the bridge, focusing on supply chain and the economic impacts, the things that real people will notice when they go to the grocery store, when they can't get their Amazon orders, when they can't get a car built or go to work because they have nothing to build. So I do think that speaks to sort of bread and butter issues, and that's why you're seeing him being a little bit more vocal and focused on the demonstration there versus what's going on in Ottawa.
Would you expect to see more of the Premier now that it's hit the auto sector, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about that. Those people that walked out of work yesterday after the end of their shift being told they're not coming back until this is sorted out. Thousands of people are not going to work today because of this demonstration. There are trucks sitting on that bridge from our amazing agriculture sector filled with produce grown in greenhouses in the Windsor-Tecumseh area, that all of that stock is lost. Millions of dollars of impact to our local economies. But not just that. If you think about not just the largest business, everybody's frustrated by what limitations we've had because of COVID. But you also have to remember that when over 90% of people have been vaccinated, when so much of this is about the fact that these people don't want to get vaccinated, you're not, just politics in general, it's pretty simple math. Why wouldn't you want to be on the side of the majority? Everybody is frustrated, but that doesn't change the fact that, if this is about people that don't want to be forced to be vaccinated, more than 90% of people did their part. They've done the public health measures. They're ready for life to get back to normal. There's just not tolerance for this, and our economy certainly can't take the hit.
Okay, so let's play again the clip from Christine Elliott, the health minister, yesterday doing the update about rapid tests, but of course lots of questions about protests and timelines for health restrictions. And this is what she said about vaccine passports and mask mandates.
Well, we've already set out our opening timelines. We started on January 31st. The next phase is as of February 21st and then March 14th. We have no plans currently to drop the passport vaccination situation or masking. We believe that masking is going to be important for some time to come.
I think it's going to be that last part that a lot of people seize upon. For some time to come. Nevertheless, dovetailing that is this report from Mike Crawley of CBC News that they may be looking at accelerating the lifting of restrictions. Is there any political risk involved with that? Andrew Brander.
Well, yeah, there's lots of political risk. Lots of qualifiers.
Lots of qualifiers this week, yeah.
In her statement there, at this time or at this moment and for the time to come. I don't think this would be the first time we'd see the health minister say one thing just to have the premier come out a couple days later and say something completely different. So I think it continues to be an evolving situation. I think it's going to be very hard for this government politically to stick to the original timeline, given the amount of other jurisdictions that are just moving so much faster. However, I do also think that the premier picked a lane in this early. Remember how many times during the last 24 months we've heard the premier proudly talk about how we have the strictest measures in North America here in Ontario. That mood, that appetite has shifted, as I'm sure you've seen in recent polls. That tipping point, the majority has finally shifted away from the sort of pro-mandate camp, if you will. Right. And so, that speaks to people's frustration. So does obviously the situations that are unfolding at the provincial legislature in Ottawa, at the Ambassador Bridge. That doesn't obviously, none of that negates the fact that there's an election coming up. And I don't think the PCs are keen to give the Liberals any room to accuse them of being unsafe. So I do think we're in for a slower start or restart than the rest of the provinces.
We're not going to be Saskatchewan anytime soon. Not for the time being, anyway.
Exactly. Or at this moment.
All right. Let me jump in here with just a little nugget of breaking news. As you know, we have our city businesses all being done virtually. The city council meetings, the committee meetings, and today was the planning committee meeting for the members of the planning committee of Ottawa City Council. And the City of Ottawa has its own YouTube page, and it's been hacked. And the proceedings lasted about 7 minutes, and then the screen went black, and then this appeared Ottawa Police has failed its citizens. Jim Watson has failed us. Slowly has failed us. Trudeau has failed us. That's all that it says on the City of Ottawa YouTube page right now, where you're supposed to be able to go and stream the planning committee meeting. Wow, that's pretty interesting. What's been deleted, David? Sorry.
The entire video there.
They just took it down.
It was
YouTube?
a live stream, and then the live stream ended, so it's up there as a video, and now it's been completely removed from YouTube.
Wow. Isn't that something? Okay, Lindsay, we'll pick it up on the other side with you, and we'll talk about this big housing report that was out. Maybe they were supposed to talk about it at the planning committee meeting today. I don't know. Whatever. It's a kind of a crazy day in the capital. We have kind of a mini convoy that's circling the Ottawa airport right now, too. So, 9:47, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Okay, we're back with Ontario politics this week with Lindsay and Andrew, as we usually do on a Thursday morning. So lost in all the news about convoys is this huge housing report, and it's just buried because of everything else that's going on. But the government had a housing affordability task force, and it released a report this week, and it says the province needs to commit to building 1.5 million new homes over the next 10 years. I mean, some of the highlights: declare that up to 4 units with up to 4 stories be allowed as of right. I'm not sure what that really, as of right, automatically without rezoning, I guess is what that means. Doing away with local rules that now mandate just single-family homes. A lot of transit-oriented development, unlimited height, unlimited density near major transit stations. Scrap local rules meant to preserve quote-unquote neighborhood character, such as those that restrict the shadow cast by new buildings, legalize multi-tenant housing or rooming houses. Rules requiring minimum numbers of new parking spots should be removed or reduced in municipalities with populations of more than 50,000 people, make it harder to appeal developments to the land tribunal, including charging a $10,000 fee. So, I mean, it's big stuff. Lindsay, what's your reaction to the report, and just how big of an election issue do you think the housing affordability question is going to be?
Well, I think this is a huge campaign issue, actually, because especially when you look at the majority of seats that often have the effect on turning government in around the 905 and other areas getting more expensive, and also the part where rural Ontario, small towns have gotten way more expensive because of this pandemic, with lots of people taking on a second property or moving out of the city, but then there's still the demand here. So these are people who, multi-generational, worried about their kids being able to afford a house. It used to just be if you put your kid through school, they got a good job, you would be able to own a home, retire. All of these things are not in kids' futures anymore with the housing rate the way that it's going. If you have not been the most fortunate to be a winner in the Toronto housing market, you are locked out. You are locked out. So this is a big issue for people who have kids who might still be living at home. They want their kids to be able to afford a home. Grandparents, all voters would be worried about the cost of housing for future generations. And there's also some things that are just glaringly obvious about this report that have been available for a long time. For example, I live in the part of Toronto where 1 kilometer away from me on the subway line are multi-million-dollar homes with 1 or 2 people living in them. In terms of the density issue, like where there are transit stops, we should allow more housing to be built there. You shouldn't get to block a condo or an apartment building going up because you don't want one next to you. So that just isn't how a city like Toronto should work along our subway stops. So there's been a lot of protectionism. There is an availability of land. I, obviously, having done Jennifer Keesmaat's campaign, have always followed this issue closely and seeing what she has been saying on it as well. We don't have a land issue. We don't have we need to work on our construction capacity, and we need to have there be incentives to build affordable housing, because that's why it's not being built. So there's lots of good options on the table, and the person coming forward with a great plan for this stands a great chance of success, because there's not a single person living in Ontario who is not worried about the cost of their own house or costing of a family members and what the future looks like.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I would wonder is, governments are great at creating these task forces, and they're great at issuing reports. It's then the follow-up. Does this become a doorstop in Steve Clark's office, collecting dust? I wonder. That's what I want to know. But Andrew, what do you think? Reaction to the report, and how big of an issue do you think it is in the election? Housing.
I don't think the government can treat it as a doorstop. I suspect in the province, look at how far we've come in just 4 years. I suspect we've passed the tipping point. During the last election, I'm sure you'll remember, environmental issues around sort of paving the green belt, if you will, trumped any kind of debate. The Tories felt like they couldn't even touch this issue because lest they be accused of such. Now, even just 4 years later, as prices continue to sort of skyrocket, even more so during the pandemic, we saw a huge amount of people obviously move out of cities, forced further and further away to find something affordable. So I think a lot of these reforms are welcomed, and we'll see how the minister responds to it, and how the various campaign teams choose to to bring these proposals forward. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The focus on transit-oriented communities, removal of requirements on parking spaces. These are, positive developments that
But is that how they'll be perceived, I wonder, by voters?
I think so. And politically, quite frankly, for the Conservatives, this is a knock it out of the park report for them. They're going to lean into this. I think politically it represents a wedge too, with the Liberals getting a little bit squeezed on this. The NDP will make no surprises in coming down hard on the side of the NIMBY crowd. But where and how the Liberals choose to respond to this, and I think we're getting some early hints from Lindsay there in terms of the direction the party's probably going to go, is going to be very important, because I couldn't agree more with her. Everyone is going to be talking about this. It is certainly going to be in the top three issues, alongside obviously the response to COVID.
Okay. Thank you to both of you this week. Be well, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist, former advisor to Premier McGuinty, doing some work on the upcoming Del Duca campaign. And Andrew Brander, former advisor to the Ford government, and he is a vice president at Crestview Strategy. I'm Rob Snow. The Talkback Hour is next. We're talking convoy again here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 2 degrees, 3 degrees in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Tail end of rush hour this morning, about 60 to 70 trucks made their way along the airport parkway to Ottawa International. A spokesperson for the airport says this protest convoy made up of light trucks circling arrivals and departure roadways now. Now, due to the pandemic, the airport says usual traffic pattern is light, so the impact is minimal. Airport security and police are monitoring, but the airport does advise if you're heading either to catch a flight or meet someone, leave a little extra time. The airport statement goes on to say they're disappointed protesters have chosen to disrupt an industry already decimated by the pandemic, pointing out it's an important link to Canada's north, for example, for essential products and services. Ottawa Police also tweeting today, officers able to negotiate a dozen trucks leave the RCGT parking lot on Coventry. 10 trucks also left the Bank and Laurier area, destination unknown. Police do say one protest truck, though, was towed from Nepean and Bank. Now, police are warning protesters they could face criminal charges if they keep blocking streets. Ottawa has called for 1,800 more officers and civilians to deal with the protests. Yesterday, Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair said the government is working to ensure police have the resources they need to restore public order. Now, the Prime Minister and the Premier did meet yesterday over the phone. They will continue working to get the situation under control, not only in Ottawa, but also the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. City News Time at 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Light wet snow at times for us, a southwest wind, the high near 2 degrees, well above average. Chance of flurries tonight, low -8, and for tomorrow, light snow, a couple of centimeters could accumulate, the high near +1. For today, the high 2.
And right now it is 2 degrees in Ottawa, 3 degrees in Smiths Falls. New advice on how to swab if you're taking a rapid COVID test. Science advisors in Ontario say rapid antigen tests do not detect COVID-19 infections with the Omicron variant as reliably as they did with the Delta strain. However, changing the way you do the test could boost their sensitivity. A briefing today says a rapid test, which involved nasal swab, less sensitive to Omicron, especially in the first 1 or 2 days. But results are better if you swab both cheeks, then the back of the tongue or throat, then both nostrils. Ontario's top doctor is set to hold a pandemic briefing today. Dr. Kieran Moore's weekly media briefing comes a day after the province's health minister says Ontario will keep the mask mandate and vaccine certificate system in place for the time being. Beacon Hills' Isabel Weideman captures her second medal of these games, kicking off the medal haul for Canada with a bronze in 3,000 meters speed skating, but following that up with a silver medal today. Here's City News reporter Jamie Pulfer.
The podium finish in the women's 5,000 meter for 26-year-old Isabel Weideman from Ottawa. It's her second medal at these games after winning bronze in the 3,000 meter. Mixed team aerials making its Olympic debut today. Team Canada won the bronze in this wild freestyle skiing event. It was the first ever medal for this country in alpine combined. Toronto's Jack Crawford making history with a bronze. And another snowboarding medal, silver in men's snowboard cross. It was a photo finish for 20-year-old Elliot Grondin of Quebec. Austria won the gold. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
So we have a convoy. This is all happening right now. We have a convoy of several dozen trucks, light trucks, pickup trucks for the most part, by the looks of things, and they're kind of circling the airport, up and down the airport parkway. The City of Ottawa's YouTube site was hacked this morning during the planning committee. The planning committee was live streamed for about 7 minutes or so, and then it looks as though it was hacked. And somebody put up a message that says, Jim Watson has failed us, Peter Slowly has failed us, Prime Minister Trudeau has failed us. And now the Ottawa police say there is a concerted effort to flood the 911 emergency line and the non-emergency reporting line, to flood the phone lines. And the police say, don't do that. It's a criminal offense. So it's only 5 after 10 in the morning. And what an eventful morning it has been. And this is the Talkback Hour on the Rob Snow Show, 750-1310. And look, I want to kind of focus the conversation because we were all over the place yesterday. But, you know, my thing is, it's 2 weeks tomorrow, right, since the convoy rolled into town. How do you see it ending, the protest in Ottawa? And I would guess, the Windsor, Detroit, and Sarnia, and Coutts, Alberta. How do you see it ending? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, this weekend. I know I'm working this weekend. Thanks, truckers. Okay. Yeah, I'm on the air on Saturday, noon to 4. You can catch me here on City News. I don't know if anyone knows how it's all going to end, but I do know this because it is plainly evident. The protesters are not going to leave Ottawa or Windsor or Coutts, Alberta, because some politician asked them to. The Prime Minister has said, go home. The Premier said, go home. The Mayor said, go home. So they've all said that, and they're still here, still dug in. And the hardcore, the diehards insist they're not going anywhere. And here we are, 2 weeks tomorrow. 2 weeks tomorrow since all of this began. Politicians can ask them to leave. If they don't leave, how does it end? How does it end? I'm going to ask every caller that. How does it end? How does it end? Good morning, Jason. Ottawa. Good morning, Jason.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Jason. How are you?
Not too bad.
How does it end, Jason? How does all of this end? 2 weeks tomorrow.
Well, the Prime Minister or someone needs to talk to these people.
Okay.
First off.
Yeah.
I'm fully vaccinated.
Sure.
I'm working. But I support these people. And not just because of the vaccinations and stuff like that. I'm vaccinated. I'm safe. If they want to go into a restaurant with me, go for it. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
The other issues are housing and stuff like this. That's why they're getting so much support. The government has failed in a lot of ways. I build houses, and in the summer, I have to move because I can't afford a house here, and I'm going to get kicked out of the place I'm in because it's an Airbnb that they have 8 or 9 of.
Oh, okay.
So there's real issues, and I don't think...
Oh, with housing affordability, yeah. I mean, that's a story. I've been all over that. And what's the price of gas in Ottawa this morning? 157, 158? Oh, I think it went down a little bit. I think it's only $1.55 now. It's only up 50% in the last 6 months or something, right?
Yeah, that's
the cost of living. Cost of living.
People also want to call cops in on these people. Like we're supposed to be allowed to protest. These people are doing that because I can't right now.
Yeah.
I'm at work. I'm doing this kind of thing.
Protest.
You want to use police
Jason, just hold on. Jason, protest peacefully. Peacefully protest, right? Peacefully.
Yeah,
protest.
for sure. And I'm pretty sure most of them are. You're going to have some people, even the Black Lives Matter movement. You had people downtown with signs and stuff against it. You're going to get bad publicity from some people no matter where you go.
Oh, yeah. Every big crowd will have it. It's a sorted wingnuts.
If you have to bring in police and that to move these people that are this organized and this concerned, and you're talking a few million, I'm assuming, at 10%, let's just go low on the numbers. And people say peaceful protest. Okay, you're going to remove them by force, which is not peaceful, without talking to them with the Prime Minister or anybody, Doug Ford, anybody at all. So then what's their next option if peaceful didn't work?
Well, options.
I'm not saying anything, but
I know.
What is the next option?
Hey, that's, I'm glad you're getting to that. Options, right? Options. What are the options, right? You could give them what they want. I hear that. I've heard that for 2 weeks. Just give them what they want. Okay. End all the mandates and everything goes back to normal and everybody packs up and goes home. End all the public health restrictions. I set aside all this kind of craziness about, let's replace the government and give unelected protesters a say in some sort of coalition government. We all know that that's stuff and nonsense, right? An end to all the mandates, as I've argued this week, it's actually not that far outside of mainstream Canadian thinking, according to the public opinion research from very reputable Canadian polling firms like the Angus Reid Institute. That's where the majority of Canadians are now, according to that survey from Angus Reid, 54%, right? End all the mandates. But look how dug in the politicians are, like the Prime Minister. It's an option, but if you're a politician, do you end all the mandates because a convoy clogged Ottawa for a couple of weeks? Jordan Castleman. Morning, Jordan. You're on City News.
Morning, Rob.
So how does it end? How does it end? It's been 2 weeks tomorrow. How does it end?
To answer your question, I think without a really good answer, I think it's going to be messy.
Messy, yeah. Okay, all right.
And that kind of takes a few different ways. And one of the reasons I was calling in is I think people have lost faith in the public systems. The police are going to probably have to get violent, quote unquote, because they're not leaving after being asked to leave, the truckers, that is. But I think we spend a lot of tax dollars on our healthcare system, on our emergency services, and we're kind of seeing that break down. From the perspective of the police, there was a fire that was set. There's an investigation going on. There's nobody caught. There was somebody who desecrated the war memorial. There's an investigation going on. Still nobody's got caught, and that's over a week old, and we have police on every single corner.
Yeah.
And we've got people investigating from all over. And then we switch to the healthcare system, and it's something we've been trying to protect for 2 years. We've put all kinds of government money into the hospital system and the healthcare system. And I turn on the radio and I hear advertisements for fundraising for emergency room in Carleton Place, fundraising for cancer centers in Ottawa. And we've never really addressed where the tax dollars go or how we can actually manage our system. And I think people are losing faith, because if you bring in 1,800 officers, what better is going to happen? Because we haven't solved the crimes that are going on within this protest right now.
Right.
And I don't know if more resources is really going to be the fix for it.
Okay. But you think it's going to be messy, you said?
I do believe it's going to be messy.
What do you mean by messy?
Well, I just don't think our resources can handle it in a strategic way. From the truckers have the ability to spread out. Our police force doesn't have the ability to contain even a red zone.
Yeah.
It's spreading out across the country, and I think they're going to have to use force.
Force. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yep. Jordan. Ottawa South. Mark. Morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rob.
How does it end?
Well, I wonder if you'd forgive me if I say something that I would have said if I'd been able to get on yesterday, when I learned that you were going to talk to the lead of the Ontario Liberal Party.
Yeah, okay.
What's happening in downtown Ottawa is what happened to the people of Caledonia for several years, while your predecessor, Dalton McGuinty, did nothing and abandoned them. Now, as for the current situation, it's the greatest domestic challenge for the Prime Minister, second only to COVID. But it's more difficult than COVID in some ways, because COVID isn't a person, it's a thing. And nobody can sympathize with it. It doesn't have a human face. Now, his position is such that if he goes and he, say, tasks Krista Freeland to deal with this, and she does so effectively, then he knows people are going to be asking, why isn't she the Liberal Party?
Yes.
And when she proved better in the job than him, so I don't think he can allow that as a matter of his own political survival. There's several things we got to remember, though, that if we do mass arrests at the present time, we don't have sufficient capacity in our jails to hold any significant number of them. Certainly not at the Ottawa Regional Detention Center. We'd have to build special holding facilities.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. That is a good point. It's something I did not think of, actually.
Well, we don't have to build new ones. And you see,
that's interesting.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau was able to endure bad optics in 1970, and you know he.
Yeah, but in 1970, there, you know, the country had reached a point, for all the warts of the truckers' convoy, you know, they have not kidnapped anyone. They have not murdered anyone. They have not spent years blowing up mailboxes, murdering people here in Ottawa and explosions at DND, these sorts of things. They didn't blow up a stock exchange, right?
Well,
But Senior Trudeau had such political capital, I would say, because people viewed the FLQ as terrorists. Now, Canadians, the polling would suggest, disagree with the convoy, but do have some sympathy with their cause. I don't know if too many people have sympathy for the FLQ, Mark, right? That's the difference here.
Well, sympathy for the cause, but there is a point where the streets do have to be cleared. The larger societal interests has to take precedence. I've often made this remark, and I've got to be careful when I say it because it could be misunderstood, that what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989, even in a democracy, they would have reached a point where the government would have had to clear the public square. It's the fact they did an outright massacre when they didn't need to. That was the horror. But there is a point, again, where, to restore
right. Okay.
our crucial trade route.
So, how does it end? Let's get back to the original. How does it end then?
We've got to be doing contingency planning for a very difficult situation none of us want. But of course, I would indeed have Chrystia Freeland go and talk to them and hear them out. And I mean, before you get anything rough, at least do that for God's sake, to say that you tried.
That you tried. Okay, try dialogue. Try dialogue.
Yes, exactly.
At least for the sake of appearing to have tried to have a dialogue.
First.
Okay, Mark. Okay, thank you. At 10:17, an interesting start to the hour. 750-1310 on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's such a beautiful field because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out of our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yeah, so just to keep you up to date, our next newscast, 10:30, we have the convoy of trucks circling the airport, light trucks, more like pickup trucks up and down the airport parkway. That is still going on. We have the hacking of the City of Ottawa's YouTube site this morning during the planning committee. The Ottawa police say there is a concerted effort to flood the 911 emergency line to basically, disable 911. And the police say that's a crime. And as well, out of Manitoba, RCMP demonstration involving a large number of vehicles and farming equipment blocking the Emerson point of entry. 90 minutes south of Winnipeg, no traffic getting through northbound or southbound. So new developments all the time. My overriding question is, how does all of this end? How does all of this end? We have had a convoy clogging Ottawa for a couple of weeks. And now the police are trying to make life a little bit more difficult for the protesters, take a harder stance. But where do you see this all heading eventually? Eleanor in Orleans. Good morning, Eleanor.
I'm fed up with it all. I don't know how it's going to end. It's probably going to end pretty ugly. And I worry about those people who brought their kids. I mean, do they have no brains in their head? Who brings a kid to something like this?
I don't know. There's a really good write-up in the newspaper about that, actually. They kind of like glamping. They describe it as glamping. Our kids are living better than most, say the protesters.
Oh, please. Give me a break.
Say they are here to protect their children's future.
No one said you have to get your kids inoculated. They highly recommend it, but it's up to you as the parent to make that decision.
I don't know. It sounds to me like these protesters, at least in this story this morning in the newspaper by Blair Crawford and Elizabeth Payne, it's kind of just like a big road trip adventure kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call this an adventure, and I'd never expose my children to something like this.
All right. Okay. I encourage you to read that news report.
I will. Yeah, I'll go online and I'll read it this morning, but I really don't see it ending stupidly.
They don't come across, at least the parents that were interviewed by the newspaper do not come across in any way as bad parents to me.
Well, I'm not saying they're bad parents. I'm just saying I would never in a million years bring my kids into something like this, especially in the middle of winter.
I appreciate that. And, we had, someone with your opinion on the radio yesterday, Eleanor, and a mother with a totally opposite opinion on the radio yesterday, too.
Yeah, I know. You'll get different opinions, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you think to my original question, it's not going to end very well? You don't?
No. And I'm going to, it's time they moved in on them, but I really don't see it ending well. I've talked to the rest of my family out in Western Canada, and they say the same thing. It's not going to end pretty.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, Eleanor. I just want to mention, we will have special coverage. I will be on the air. David will be here as well. We're working the weekend. We Are a Lover Boy song. Noon to 4, right? Tentatively, noon to 4. Because last time we were supposed to be on the radio 3 hours, we ended up doing like 7 or 8 hours. So hopefully, maybe it's an uneventful weekend. The last couple of weekends have not been uneventful in the nation's capital, but we're going to be here. The program will be simulcast on some other CTV News, City News radio stations. I think we're going to be on 680 in Toronto as well. So keep that in mind. And we have... There's a wonderful podcast, Big Story Podcast. Jordan Heath Rawlings does the Big Story Podcast. And Matt Gurney, who usually writes for, it's The Line, right? That's what it's called, The Line, Substack. Really good. And the National Post, he writes for the National Post, does some things for TVO as well. He's a Toronto guy. He's been in Ottawa and just returned to Toronto. His latest for The Line is really must read. His experience, walking up and down the main protest site on Wellington Street and then going to Coventry at that site and how different it is. But Jordan Heath Rawlings interviewed Matt Gurney for the Big Story Podcast. And I would encourage you all, if you're into listening to podcasts, I listened to it very early this morning. It's what prompted me actually to go drive around the Coventry site a couple of times this morning, which I did at around 4:30 this morning. Matt has a totally different take on Chief Slowly. Most people are looking at Chief Slowly as the guy who messed all of this up. And it's almost like he's being set up as the fall guy. Like, Chief Slowly is incompetent, doesn't know what he's doing, has made mistakes all the way along. Let's play clip 2 here. This is Matt Gurney on the Big Story Podcast with how he views Chief Slowly.
Whatever criticisms you want to make of Chief Slowly, and believe me, I could make some, he's not stupid. He is very well spoken. He is savvy. He is a good communicator. He is telling people what is going on there in the most blunt way he probably feels like he can get away with. And I don't think he's being listened to. My impression is that officials in Ottawa, officials in Ontario, the Ontario government, and particularly at the federal level, are still not really understanding what they're up against in Ottawa, that they think this is an unusually raucous or persistent protest. That's partially what's going on, but there is that other element that's taken root there as well. And I think that is what has the chief worried, because if they try to do any enforcement action on the Wellington Street protest or the Kent Street protest near Parliament, what are those guys down at that encampment going to do? Meanwhile, if they make a move on the encampment to enforce some search warrants or something like that, what are the guys at Parliament going to do? I believe that the chief is worried that he has no nonviolent options, and I'm worried that he is right.
Wow. No nonviolent options. That's Matt Gurney's take on kind of where the chief is right now, given just everything that's been going on and where we are, 13, 14 days into this. Victor in Ottawa. Victor, you're on City News.
Yeah.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, hello, Rob.
Yes,
so,
Victor. Yeah. How does this end, Victor? How do you think it ends?
So the way it ends is this. That's my opinion. I spoke with you when it was starting, and I knew I was going to get to this. The way to end this is simple, okay?
Okay.
Take the lead as the Prime Minister. Issue a statement on prime time. Direct, just the way you talked to BLM when they were doing their riot. I can hear you. I understand the pain. Provinces are already pulling back on restrictions. We will consider the science, and definitely we would pull back on these restrictions. We're not going to be in this pandemic forever, but we don't want you to cause much strain on the populace. I'm going to meet with a couple of people who you think are your representatives, even if they don't agree to what I'm going to say. But I've heard you. I was wrong in tagging you Nazis, fascists. Maybe I got a wrong advice. Not to a fall guy. Maybe I got a wrong impression. But it's obvious you have your kids, you have your family, and this movement is actually everywhere in Canada. When they hear this, right, people in their camp, half of them will say, you know what? He's heard us.
Okay.
I don't think I want to stay here again.
Okay.
Let me pull back.
Okay.
That is the way you do this, because Trudeau is just shooting himself on the foot. Look at the bridge. It's blocked. Look at what you just said this morning about what's going to happen in Waterloo. The more he keeps taking a hard stance, the more this stuff keeps increasing, and the more he loses his political capital. There is no way the police will want to make it violent, because that will be a bad reputation on the police. Forget what everybody's saying. Nobody wants it to be violent. These guys came with their kids. They are ready. They're ready to die. They're ready for that, for someone to bring his or her kid.
I was reading the Windsor Star this morning, newspaper of record in Windsor, Ontario, about this, and that's, that's what the mayor says. Why haven't the police in Windsor moved in to try and get these people off the bridge? Because he says people are willing to die.
Exactly.
For this. Wow, right? Wow.
And that will be a bad reputation for Canada. Canada, that is a loved city, their police went and killed protesters. That will be bad news for like a year.
All right.
Trudeau will be finished. The Liberal Party will be finished.
Okay, Victor, I got to go. Thank you. Thank you, Victor. Victor says it's up to Trudeau. Trudeau has to show some contrition. Rob Snow Show, halftime talkback hour. Keep it coming. 750-1310. Loving the talk this morning. This is City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 3 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 4. Here's what's making news this hour. About 60 to 70 protest trucks made their way to the airport this morning. It was a short cruise around the Oval, going past the arrival and departures doors a few times. Those trucks, though, have now left the airport, heading back apparently to Coventry. It comes after police reported a number of trucks had left Coventry this morning. Ottawa police say there is also a concentrated effort today to flood 911 and non-emergency police lines. Police say on Twitter this endangers lives and is completely unacceptable. The incredible Olympics continue for Beacon Hill's Isabel Weideman. Not only did she win the first medal of the Games for Canada, that was a bronze, you remember, in 3,000-meter speed skating, but has just won a second this morning. A silver this time in the 5,000-meter. Canada has also won medals on the hill in combined alpine skiing and snowboard. Canada now has 1 gold, 4 silver, 7 bronze, good enough for 12th place in the medal standings in Beijing. A significant drop in the number of people in hospital with COVID-19 today, dropping below 2,000, 1,897. The number in ICU has dropped slightly, still 445 needing that level of care. There are also 44 more deaths attributed to the virus across Ontario today. City News Time, 10:34. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
So I just want to bring you a little bit of a live thing that's going on right now. So Paul Calandra is a cabinet minister in the Ford government, and he's at a committee right now at Queen's Park. He's being questioned by Ottawa South Liberal MPP John Fraser, and it's all about the protest and what the Ford government might do to end the protests.
I don't understand why that happened, and it breaks trust. So, my colleague Joel Harden is right when he says administrative penalties work. And I would say to the minister respectfully that the Highway Traffic Act is about public safety and security. And it can be used to ensure that that happens. So it should be happening. And maybe you can answer this question. I wish the Solicitor General was here because I really would like to talk to her about Bill 68, which we passed 3 years ago in March 2019. And the provisions of Bill 68, which is the Police Services Act, or I can't remember the exact title, it says that Police Services Board and the Minister can bill for excessive costs for people who organize things like rallies or parades, or in this case, occupations. That act and that part of the act is not in force. And I think it would be a very effective tool to send a direct message to the organizers who are getting tons of foreign money coming in. That's not going to solve everything. But what I fail to understand is why that tool is not in force and why we aren't using it right now.
Yeah. Thanks, MPP Fraser. And again, I certainly acknowledge the challenges that the people of Ottawa are facing. And look, I'm fully aware of how that beautiful city and what everybody is going through. You bring up the organizers.
Hey, Sarah.
Look, I can see very clearly to the organizers of this, the rule of law and the authority of state will prevail. It's just the way it is. There should be no ambiguity about that. The ability of the police on the ground, both RCMP, OPP, and the OPS, they do have the tools that they need to manage the situation on the ground, including regulations or administrative penalties under the Highway Traffic Act. We don't direct them to do so. I think you'd appreciate that. But they do have those tools to do so, and that is really why we moved really quickly to deputize the RCMP so that they could do that. With respect to working closely with Ottawa Police, look, the OPP were on the ground in advance of the protest beginning. As was the Ministry of Transportation, and we are working, our law enforcement officials are working directly with the Ottawa Police Services, and have been entirely throughout the entire protest.
All right, thanks.
1 minute.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So that's Paul Callander. He used to be in the Harper government, and then when the Harper government was defeated, I believe he lost his seat. He ran provincially and won a seat in the Ford landslide. He for most of the time has been, I believe, the government House leader. And then when Rod Phillips, you remember, he quit, and he was the long-term care minister, and they just kind of threw that on the lap of Paul Callander, too. But his quote that comes out of that is, the OPP and the Ottawa Police Service have all the tools they need. That's the Ford government's position on what's going on in Ottawa. Mr. Singh is the federal NDP leader. And he's speaking right now, but he's speaking in French, so we won't take that. Tell me when he switches back to English. I'm Rob Snow. I'm sorry, I just wanted to fit in a little live news for you there. And it's been a very busy morning. Andrew, Mallorytown. Andrew.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, so a crazy morning here, Andrew, but let me ask you, it's 2 weeks tomorrow since this all started. No end in sight, but how do you think it's going to end?
Well, I don't think it's going to end very well, just because Trudeau's got his heels dug in. The protesters obviously do. I mean, I can't see it not ending kind of violent. And who knows, I might be speculating a bit here, but if it starts getting violent, it could escalate a bit. You could even see fires and riots and looting. I mean, it's not that far-fetched, is it? You've got residents crying because they see F. Trudeau signs or honking the horns, and businesses, some small businesses being closed downtown. But what would they rather? They want the police to come in and maybe as rocks fired, the fire in their apartment or the store, or the riots in the store. Not riots in the store, but I mean a riot to cause people looting in their store. Now they can't open at all. So,
So you're worried, Andrew?
Yeah,
right?
but if they go this route, how long is it going to take to get the city back to normal at that point? Maybe a month or two? If it goes that route, what's the cleanup going to be? And so we're in mid-February already, and say if it takes 2 months, okay, yeah, Trudeau came out the winner. Hey, look, guys, I won, but now he's got the city destroyed. But wait, Trudeau, the mandates just got lifted a month ago because Ford said March 15th.
Yeah, middle of March.
I don't see. We're not asking for Trudeau's firstborn child, or we're not asking the truckers aren't here in June 2020. We're here now, and lots of countries are pretty much back to normal. UK is 100% back to normal.
Yeah, UK is pretty much back to normal.
Yeah.
And whatever's not relaxed will be done in the next fortnight, I heard on the British news this morning, which means in the next 2 weeks.
But then if you don't want to compare us to other countries, you can just look at Alberta and Saskatchewan. They're pretty much...
Alberta, Saskatchewan, pretty much wide open.
I just don't see the point of going through potentially all this chaos, which could easily happen. I don't see how a riot or could be a question if things escalate. You know what I mean? Do you not kind of agree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know why Trudeau just can't put his head between his legs and just say, and maybe ask Ford too, and he's got a serious issue on his hands with the...
Well, I mean, does it, I mean, we just heard from that's Ford's main mouthpiece there, okay? Paul Callander is he's kind of like a Polyev type. He's a very, very good attack dog for the government. And he just said that the OPP and the Ottawa Police Service have all the tools they need. Does it look like the Ottawa Police has all the tools it needs to end this? If that's the case, why isn't it over? Doesn't look like they had the tools to end it. Okay, I get you. I'm not far from where you are, Andrew.
Might go that route when we're almost out of this anyway. I think this is going to be the last wave of pandemic.
I hope so.
Vaccination rates and everyone's been exposed to it. I think this is the last wave, and I don't know. I just don't see why you should go that route. I know Trudeau doesn't want to give in to them, but
Right. How many border crossings have to close, though, before something happens, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Windsor, Detroit could be just so economically devastating. We've already, talked about how it's curtailed production in the auto sector already in just a few days. Now, Sarnia, I'm not really familiar with the border crossing there, and nor am I familiar with this one. The port of entry at Emerson in Manitoba blocked as well. And this, along with the situation here in Ottawa. So all of this happening in 13, 14 days. Rodney. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning.
Yeah, how does it end? How does it end, Rodney?
Either quickly or slowly. Hey, before we get to that, you working on the weekend, I hope they're paying you double time. And then I hope also when they
do it for free. No, Rodney.
No. And then I hope when they play the repeats, they pay you double time for that.
Oh, like royalties. Yeah, sure.
And you come up with the business card for David, and on your new business card, you put the Rob Snow Show, and then PMO underneath it, and that's the Political Monitoring Office.
Okay. All right, Rodney, let's be serious here, okay?
Hey, well, I am.
Look, this is a serious situation here.
That's something that I've thought of for a long time, and
well, God bless you. But how does it end?
And then I wanted to give you more information on the FLQ.
Yeah, Rodney.
Okay, you don't want to hear about the one.
I have to, Rodney. We've got to keep a lid on it here, okay? So, or else you're going to send me off wandering off in all directions, okay? I know how you are. John in Kingston. John. Hey, John.
Hi.
Yeah, John. Let's try and stay focused here. Okay.
Yep.
How does it end?
I think it's not going to end very well.
Okay.
The minute they start using force, it's just going to pour more fuel on the fire.
Right. So what do you do if you don't want that outcome, John? What do you do?
Well, just talk to them. That's as simple as it is. Having to sit down to hash everything out to try to come to a resolution.
Okay.
It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. You see that happening though?
Oh yeah.
I'm
a truck driver. I'm talking to them every day.
No, but do you see Trudeau
No, I don't
or
see him
whoever his proxy kind of sucking it up and sitting down, even breathing the same air as the Freedom Convoy?
This would have been solved a long time ago, right from the start. Just by having to sit down.
Well, I think
I don't think Trudeau is going to budge at all. If anything, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah. I think, John. The longer this goes on, I go back. I was thinking this morning. You remember there was some confusion there over about a 24-hour period. Are they going to have the vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers in Canada or not? And it seemed as though the Canadian Border Service had been saying, no, that's not coming into effect. And then the next day it was like, no, bam, it's coming into effect.
And that's why the truckers are so up in arms.
Yeah, of course.
They can't make up their mind what they want to do.
Would we be in some severe state from a public health point of view? Would Omicron or COVID-19 be so much worse if we didn't have that vaccine mandate for truckers?
No, I don't think truck drivers don't have time to go shopping in the mall and stuff like that.
And now look at the state we're in. We've got people hacking websites, driving around the airport nonstop.
They're just
flooding 911, closing borders.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, look, the farmers are getting involved.
Yeah, and the farmers are getting involved. Yeah. Was it worth it? That vaccine mandate worth all of this pain?
Well,
that the country's in right
more
now?
Than just the vaccine mandate.
Well, it's become more than that.
Yeah.
It's become more than that.
It's growing, yeah.
Yeah. It's growing each passing day, each passing hour now, John.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Talking about getting physical with the truckers, that'd be a mistake, because the minute they start poking at the truckers, don't you think more's going to show up? Like, all they have to do is turn around. If I didn't have a company vehicle, I'd be over there with my truck.
Well, it says here on the front page of the newspaper this morning, quote, meanwhile, Benjamin Dichter, Vice President, Freedom Convoy 2022, said at a media conference Wednesday, another massive convoy of 1,000 to 1,500 trucks was on the way to Ottawa from Alberta. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because they've said things that aren't true before, or whether they're just whether that's just mind games or what.
There's people on their edge. The truck drivers are on their edge. The minute they're called, they're turning around and going right back over to Ottawa.
All right, John. Thank you. Stay well.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thanks for the call. Okay, be right back. Rob Snow Show, City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
All right, so let me give you kind of a quick tour of the live news right now. Paul Calandra, government house leader, Ford government, at committee right now, a committee where the MPPs had hoped to be questioning the Ontario Solicitor General, Sylvia Jones. They sent Calandra instead. He's there. He recently said the OPP and the Ottawa Police Service have all the tools they need. In other words, the Ontario government will wash our hands of it. He's speaking right now, right?
It's been very clear that, especially through Omicron, and look, before that, through the Delta wave, that vaccines have made a huge difference.
Okay, so that's enough of him. Right now, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of Canada's New Democrats, says these convoy protests can't go on any longer, and he urges Mr. Trudeau, quote, show some leadership.
Mr. Singh, I was wondering whether you felt that the politicization of the pandemic is actually hampering the ability to find a solution, and whether it's time to tone down the rhetoric when it comes to assessing issues such as mandates.
Well, there should be no politicizing of science. Like, it's clear that getting vaccinated keeps you healthier. It's been a tool that we've used throughout our history.
So that's happening right now. And just moments ago in the House of Commons, Candice Bergen. Candice Bergen is the interim leader of the Conservatives after they tossed Erin O'Toole. Candice Bergen said this moments ago in the House of Commons.
In the protests, I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together. The economy you want to see reopen is hurting. Farmers, manufacturers, small businesses, and families are suffering. I believe this is not what you want to do. We must all work together. You are protesting because you love your country and you want your freedom back. To the protesters here in Ottawa, you came bringing a message. That message has been heard. Conservatives have heard you, and we will stand up for you and all Canadians who want to get back to normal life. We will not stop until the mandates have ended.
But she's saying the protest should end. Candice Bergen is now saying the protest should end after many reports that she wanted to go on because of the political damage that it was doing to Mr. Trudeau. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick live update there. Brian, Constance Bay. Brian, good morning.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Brian. Brian, it's been a crazy morning, man. How do you think this ends? It's 2 weeks tomorrow. How do you think it ends?
Tough one to say for sure. I think it could end tomorrow if Trudeau Liberal government was smart enough. This is they're doing, and I think they've forgotten that they're not the boss of us. They work for us, and there's millions of people protesting. And if they don't see that, then they're a worse government than I thought.
Okay. It doesn't sound like Mr. Trudeau's going to give an inch, right?
No,
I mean, you listen to him, right?
That's the way the governments, they've made bad decisions ever since they've been in power.
Right. Okay. So given his very hard line, what do you think? What are the alternatives?
I think it's just going to escalate everything.
Going to escalate, okay.
More truckers come in.
Yeah.
More truckers come in. Like they're at every border almost now. There's going to be more truckers come in. It's just going to be crazy. And it could all be just ended by one simple thing that has it's going to do nothing to COVID. Just take that mandate from away.
Yeah. Maybe what about that? Maybe he could ask Joe Biden to end the mandate on that side.
Well, exactly.
Which would kind of give him maneuverability to end the mandate on this side.
Yeah. And
because, now there's lots of time. They're going to, if you see how this convoy has been such spectacular television. How Fox has just been pounding away on it. Gosh, you would think that they'd have a big convoy in the United States and that Biden would want to avoid something like that, right? So,
yeah, I thought they were blocking the border from the States, too.
What do you mean, blocking the border from the States? What do you mean?
Like from the state side, the Americans were blocking the border, too. I thought I seen that somewhere, too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. You kind of lost me there, but I guess, what I'm thinking is I'm surprised that there's not like a solidarity convoy that's already headed to Washington. Let's take this. Karen in Ottawa. Karen, good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Rob.
How do you think this ends?
I love your show.
Well, thank you, Karen.
I have been listening to all the callers, and I tend to agree with one that said this is, they're willing to fight to the death.
Well, the mayor of Windsor said that.
Well, yeah, but I agree with that. I think these people have shown their colors. They're very radical extremists, in my opinion, and I honestly believe that the government, either federal or provincial, should give in to all of their requests.
We should give in.
Yep, I think that they have to lift the that's the only way.
Yeah, I mean, ending. This idea. Let's end COVID-19 restrictions. Some people paint that as some kind of extreme view. That is not an extreme view. The Angus Reid Institute survey showed that. It is the majority opinion. Most people don't want the mandates anymore. They don't want. Take them away. Yeah,
take them away. And
it doesn't mean that, Karen. You can still wear a mask if you're supposed to get a booster. You can still get a booster if you're not comfortable going to a restaurant.
Anyway, my position is that you can't negotiate with these people. I mean, I honestly don't believe they're not rational. They're extremely angry.
Yes.
And the only way you're going to stop any bloodshed or violence of any type and all the nonsense that's going on now, blocking 911, etc., is to lift all the mandates away and just let's get on with living normally, like the way they're doing in other countries in Europe, etc. Right. I don't think the world's going to come to an end if they lifted the mandates.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Anyway.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Okay. And take one more here. Manny.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
Hey, Manny. How does it end, man?
I've called in before. Love your show.
Thank you.
You asked some really good questions. I got an answer for you.
Okay.
I think that Stoley's doing a great job. I think he is doing exactly what he's supposed to do as a police officer. The answer to this is a federal issue. This is about the Constitution. This is about upholding Canadians' rights, basically, and telling provinces you cannot lock people down. You cannot tell people they can't live. You cannot tell people they cannot have a job. So, on that, Trudeau needs to step forward and go, you know what? You're absolutely right. I've made a mistake. I see where you're coming from. Let's move forward and get back to building this country and stop spending ourselves into a hole.
All right, Manny, thank you. You're the last call of the hour. Thank you, Manny. Oh, wow. What an hour. That was incredible. We'll be right back with how many counselors? 2, 3, 2 counselors. And their perspectives on where we are and where we go from here in the city of Ottawa, Canada's capital. This is City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 3 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 4. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. About up to 70 protest trucks made their way to the airport this morning for a short cruise past the arrival and departure doors a few times. The trucks, though, left after a few passes and apparently headed back to Coventry Road. Now, police had earlier this morning tweeted about a dozen trucks were convinced to leave that lot. Now, what's not clear is if they were part of that convoy to the airport or a different group. Ottawa police also say there is a concentrated effort to flood 911 and the police non-emergency lines this morning. Police saying on Twitter this endangers lives and is completely unacceptable. Now, the protest that has mostly shut down traffic at the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor and Detroit, forcing automakers to shut down plants and send workers home. The bridge is the busiest international commercial land border in North America, Ford of Canada is running its plants in Oakville and Windsor at reduced capacity today, and there are plants on both sides of the border cutting short their second shifts last night because of a parts shortage. Now, some are also concerned this could lead to shortages in grocery stores and spoiled produce sitting for too long before reaching store shelves. Interim Conservative leader Candice Bergen has called for an end to the trucker protest in the House of Commons.
I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together. The economy you want to see reopen is hurting.
Bergen has been supportive of the trucker protest to end COVID restrictions. City News Time 11:02. A new Leger poll out today finds 43% of Canadians surveyed don't want the government to lift COVID-19 restrictions too quickly.
But 29% of respondents say it's time to lift pandemic restrictions and learn to live with COVID-19, pointing out they're already vaccinated and consider the Omicron variant less serious. The other 28% of respondents were evenly split among those who feel anxious about reopening measures and those who are angry and say they want governments to give them back their freedom. Albertans were most opposed to mandates. People in Atlantic Canada are most anxious about lifting restrictions. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press.
City News Time 11:03. A significant drop in the number of people in hospital with COVID in Ontario today. The number has dropped below 2,000 at 1,897. Also, the number of people in ICU has dropped slightly by 4 down to 445. There are also 44 more deaths in Ontario attributed to the virus. Now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Light wet snow at times for us, a southwest wind, the high near 2 degrees, well above average. Chance of flurries tonight, low -8. And for tomorrow, light snow, a couple of centimeters could accumulate, the high near +1. For today, the high 2.
And right now, 3 degrees in Ottawa, 4 degrees in Smiths Falls. Oh, so close to a golden day for Ottawa's Isabelle Weideman at the Beijing Games. She claimed silver in the 5,000-meter speed skate. Earlier in the game, she won bronze in 3,000 meters. 3 other medals at the Games today for Canada. Elliott Grandin of Quebec winning silver in men's snowboard cross, finishing second in a photo finish. Jack Crawford claimed bronze in men's alpine combined, and the mixed aerials team added another bronze, raising Canada's medal total now to 12. And the Canadian men continue their record rise in the FIFA World Soccer rankings, climbing 7 more spots to an all-time high at number 33 in the world. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All right, let's get to our counselors. And I thank them for taking the time with us today. Our counselors joining us on the line, Gloucester South Nepean Councillor Caroline Meehan. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Caroline. Who else do we have on the line? Matthew Fleury, Rideau Vanier Ward. Matthew Fleury, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, and River Ward, Riley Brockington. Good morning to you,
morning,
Councillor,
Rob.
as well, Riley Brockington.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, where to start? Well, the Conservative leader, do we have that clip, David? Can we play that clip? The interim Conservative leader, Candice Bergen, just stood in the House of Commons and said this. Let's listen to that again, please.
I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together. The economy you want to see reopen is hurting.
Okay, so the some of the Conservatives have been pretty vocal in their support of the protesters. Mm-hmm. So you have Candice Bergen is now saying it's time to go home. Everybody should go home.
I think she's woken up to what's actually happening.
Okay, Caroline. Okay. I just want to play you one more clip because Paul Calandra, who's a Ford government cabinet minister, was being questioned in committee this morning in Toronto by John Fraser from Ottawa South, the Liberal, and he said, Mr. Calandra said that the Ottawa Police Service and the OPP have all the tools they need. Play that,
The
please.
ability of the police on the ground, both RCMP, OPP, and the OPS, they do have the tools that they need to manage the situation on the ground, including regulations or administrative penalties under the Highway Traffic Act.
Okay, Carol Ann, do you feel that the city has all the tools it needs?
Well, obviously not, Rob. There's a reason that we asked for reinforcements for the 1,800 personnel. I trust that the chief of police knows exactly, what we're actually dealing with here. And so when he asked for those reinforcements, I trust what his intelligence is telling us. We need the extra help. And I reject what they're saying at the province. Give us what we require. And they were told that we were going to get assistance, but that hasn't happened yet. So, no, I'm mystified about what's happening. And the protesters are realizing if they divide, they can conquer us. These protests are springing up everywhere. So cities are going to require their own personnel. Maybe they can't give us what we're actually needing, but then we can't be outwitted by these people. We have to get the resources that we require, and I appeal to the other levels of government, to the Ford government and to the Trudeau government, to start taking this seriously and give us what we require.
Matthew Fleury, do we have everything we need?
No, we don't. I think we're all on the same page as council that we need additional tools locally. We need federal and provincial authorities to take on the various aspects of their government response and supporting us as a city. It's bigger than our city, and obviously the residents in my area and businesses in my area have been under siege. They've been. It's been 13 days too long.
Yeah.
Okay. Riley Brockington.
Yeah, on the weekend, there was a special meeting of the Police Services Board. The chief was specifically asked to give us a list of resources that you need. That was provided. You heard the 1,800 number.
Yeah.
On Monday, formal requests from the city went to the province and federal government for those resources. We're told they can't all come at once, but they'll be coming over a number of days. I don't think that number has been reached yet, but certainly there's commitments to help the city. I really want, though, the federal, provincial, and municipal governments to talk about, in addition to solving the occupation, what the plan is this year to move from a pandemic to an endemic, which is part of why they're here to begin with. How are we going to evolve as a society to live with this virus? And that hasn't been clearly stated by all three levels of government. And I think, well, in addition to the people who are in Ottawa now, regular folk need to understand, how are we going to coexist with this? How can we continue to keep schools open, businesses open, coexist, protect the most vulnerable? Because that's
the idea is to make it, I understand it, so that we don't coexist with this anymore. Isn't that the goal? Right.
Well, the virus is not going away. And no one wants to go into shutdowns again or to go into further restrictions. And there needs to be a clear plan how we are moving forward to coexist, protect the most vulnerable, have public health give us advice in that regard. But that's what's missing. There's just people dug in their heels and they haven't addressed.
Let me ask you this, Riley Brockington. Why has it taken 13 days for the city to explore the idea of an injunction? Why was it up to a 21-year-old retaining a law firm basically on her own to go to court and convince a judge just to stop the convoy from honking horns at night?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Certainly credit to that young woman for what she did. But there's going to be multiple lawsuits and probably more injunctions. Yesterday, the council talked about another injunction. I think there's been, too much hesitancy within the city's legal department to take a lead on this. And I think Councillor Fleury can elaborate as well, because he spoke to this as well. But certainly, the wait has been way too long to act on certain things. Certainly, council again took action.
The injunction is one of them, though.
Yeah.
You would agree, right?
I support the increase in fines. Fine amounts for a number of infractions have gone up tenfold.
Yeah.
And there have been over 1,000 tickets written, fine. There have been vehicles towed. There have been arrests, but certainly not enough.
Okay. On the injunction, Carol Ann, pretty slow off the mark, don't you think, with that?
I agree with you, Rob. There has been a hesitancy to act. And I think, when this is all said and done and it's over, and I'm counting on it being over sooner than later, that we will ask some serious questions. But I think what's happened is this is unprecedented in the city. We've never seen this happen before, and it caught all of us off guard. We allowed the protesters to come in because we thought it was one thing. All of a sudden, it pivots into something much, much bigger. It caught everybody. So I understand the hesitancy from the legal staff, but what I've always been saying is we've got to try something to see what works. Just sitting back and waiting and saying, "Oh well, we've got to cross our I's and cross our T's and dot our I's on everything before we do an action," is not the right move. We've got to try, and we've got to indicate to people that we're not just going to sit by. I was frustrated yesterday with David White's reaction or his explanation as to why we haven't. I just said, do something. Make an injunction against idling. Make an injunction against, the noise has already been done, but make an injunction about, spreading anywhere else in the city. Just do something. That's what I want him to do. And okay. I think we're going to see it.
Okay, Matthew Fleury, on the injunction, Matthew Fleury, don't you think we were kind of slow off the mark on that one?
Slow. I think all of us yesterday, we were grateful that the item was added to the agenda and that we were able to discuss it. I think many didn't expect us to go there, but look, we have a 21-year-old that showed the city and the lawyers at the city, hey, this is how you do it, one step at a time on multiple approaches. There's not one thing that will... there's not an easy way out of this, Rob, and that it's been 13 days. It will require all sorts of actions by all levels of government to ensure that we can see an end of our occupation in our city, and that will require a number of injunctions. Council spoke pretty openly about our concerns, essential service being transit. We obviously the one that's in place with the noise, the idling, the fire. So I heard a pretty common voice from council on some legal approach. I've yet to see an injunction tabled by the city to begin that. I think it will require a number of things. And you've heard a few days ago is the conversation on towing. Well, we need a towing solution too. Every aspects of this needs to be part of the solution to support our city and our city's response to that.
All right, we'll stop here. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, we had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Wedel place to be for all the families with kids, try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food, food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe, Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian, so all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches, we focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked, I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Wedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're back. Riley Brockington has had to leave us, the councillor for River Ward, because there is a planning committee meeting happening today. So he ducked out, now he's ducked back into that. But we are joined still by Rideau Vanier Ward Councillor Matthew Fleury and Gloucester South Nepean Councillor Carol Ann Meehan. What do you think of these, I don't know, what do you call base camps? Bronson and the other one on Coventry. What do you think about their existence at all, Carol Ann?
I felt that they shouldn't have been allowed to set up at all. I thought that the police should have moved in immediately and dismantled it and made sure that people didn't come back and stay, because this is the way that things spread. And that was my fear when it first happened. I said, don't let them stay, and we found out that they're staying. And they're using these as base camps to go into neighborhoods and, like they did this morning, go up the Airport Parkway. So I think we've got to clamp down hard on those.
Okay. Councillor Fleury?
Yeah, I think it's sort of an incomplete approach by the city. When we see what happened in Toronto over the weekend, in Quebec City over the weekend, where authorities were much more organized in terms of controlling movement and access, and obviously permitting the protest, but not with the trucks. That was much more organized, and in that sense, then the city creating a space where the trucks can be parked and the individuals can make their way by foot to get to the protest on the Hill. That seems to make sense, but where it's gone is very different, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to ask you. We're going to play a clip. This is Matt Gurney of The Line. He writes a lot for the National Post and TVO. And he was part of a podcast that is part of our organization here at City News called the Big Story Podcast with Jordan Heath Rawlings. And he has this point of view that there's kind of like two protests, that you have Wellington Street, where it can appear to be all fun and games sometimes. Hey, bouncy castles and people playing road hockey and families and strollers and all this kind of thing. And maybe there is some of that there. But then you have the encampment, Coventry Road. I listened to the podcast. I encourage everyone to do that. It prompted me to drive around there 3 times as I drove around the block 3 times this morning. I'm not sleeping well lately, as you can imagine. I was up early. I was up 4:30 in the morning. It's like a fortress there, that place, Coventry Road. It's really quite something to see. Let's roll the tape on that.
There are 1 or 2 encampment sites that are completely removed from the main protest. Those are not protest sites. Those are occupation sites. These are armed, I presume armed camps. In any case, they're fortified camps. I went to one of them on Tuesday. It is in a large parking lot near a baseball stadium. The trucks have been parked in such a way as to form a solid perimeter. There are shipping containers that make up part of it as well, as long as wooden sawhorses or stacked crates. There is one entrance in and out. It is guarded, and I was intercepted by 6 men and politely redirected away before I got within 30 feet of it. So if you want to understand what's happening in Ottawa, like I said before, you've got to understand that there's 2 things happening at once there. The larger protest by some frustrated, in some cases sincerely so, in some cases by misinformed people or badly informed people. It is obscuring with a big, big, loud, honking story the fact that there is another element that has moved into Ottawa and has taken over at least one parking lot a couple of miles from Parliament Hill. I don't know what they're doing there, but what that is not protest. It is a camp that is now fortified and guarded, and I suspect if there's going to be problems, it could happen there.
Like, that's crazy. That's crazy.
No, it is absolutely crazy, Rob. And the fact of the matter is, as Matt said, there is a general protest where there are some legitimate concerns, but they're using that as a smokescreen to set up this ultra-right, apparently paramilitary group that I believe they haven't done anything yet, but they're ready to do something. And so with this protest, what's happening here is unprecedented. So I'm encouraging people. I think this group is hell-bent on destabilizing our democracy. And I'm appealing to everybody in the city who thinks that they should go downtown this weekend to join the protest because it's a legitimate form of dissension, to please stay at home, because you want to distance yourself from this element that is up to really to no good. They're only going to be happy when they've destabilized the government. And we can't allow that to happen. So I appeal to people, please don't allow this to happen. When we live in a democracy, we've allowed the protesters to have the freedom to protest, but we can't use the rules of law, to allow these people to do what they want. We've got to show leadership. We've got to stand up to this and tell them that this is not going to be acceptable. But in order to do that, the innocent people have to stay away from downtown. They can't support this group that, I think is up to no good. Okay. Really. Okay. I'm fearful of this.
Okay. Councillor Fleury, when I spoke to you, I'm trying to think when that was, 4 or 5 days ago, you were a very frustrated city councillor. I'm wondering, though, if the situation, say, for your residents closest to the site, Byward Market, parts of Lower Town, has it improved at all in recent days? Since the injunction, has it improved at all? Or?
Yeah, until residents can walk safely without fear and intimidation, and until transit can come back to Rideau Street and businesses can reopen, including the Rideau Centre, I don't know what you define by improvement, right? Like, to me, I'm a local councillor. I represent Lower Town, Sandhill, and Vanier, and there continues to be real issues as it relates to businesses that are closed due to intimidation and fear, and transit that's not working, getting into the zone because of the blocked streets, and many micro intimidations that we're informed of every hour, basically. So as it improved, no, what we want is an end to occupation, and we want residents and businesses to be able to go into the community that they used to know 13 days before, 14 days ago.
Okay. When I put this to the callers, a lot of them think Mr. Trudeau should do something. He should show more leadership. They're expecting more from the Prime Minister. Maybe that means he has to somehow bridge the divide with these protesters or send some kind of proxy in his place to try and break some sort of impasse. But I would like to ask you as local councillors what you have thought of the leadership at the federal level. Carol-Ann Meehan.
Oh, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with the leadership from both the federal and provincial governments. We have been calling for help. We're not doing that for no reason. This is a capital city, but this is a city where we have 1 million residents whose lives have been hijacked by this. and they've got to step up and do something. I want to see leadership. I want something to happen. I'm not saying what I want to see happen, but I think that we are all crying for leadership on this. The city of Ottawa can only do so much. The police chief can only do so much. We're being overrun. And every day we see that spreading. So, yes, I'd love to see the Prime Minister and Premier Ford get together on this. Politics aside, our democracy is at stake here. And I think that we, as residents of the city, we're crawling out. Please do something on our behalf. Don't let this happen.
Okay. Matthew?
Yeah, that's the feeling. That's the same feeling I have, is a kind of failure of leadership without pointing fingers, provincially, federally, municipally. We all have to work together. It's impacted our communities in Ottawa. It's impacted our city of Ottawa, but it's much bigger than the city of Ottawa.
Yep.
And the attention of all authorities on this matter, it can't be about politics. It has to be about the people, the residents, and the businesses in our city.
Yeah, democracy is at stake here. I hope I'm not overstating it, but how else can we conclude what's happening?
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
We want the freedom to not wear masks, and we want the freedom to send our kids to school, but we also need the freedom to be able to walk in our neighborhoods and go for groceries and not be fearful all the time. The damage that this is causing, I think, is irreparable. And so the time has come. It's 2 weeks now. The time has come to step up. It's going to, we've got to do something that tells people that that these rabble-rousers, that there's somebody in charge, because when there's a vacuum of leadership, you don't know who's going to step into it, and we don't want the bad players to get more of a toehold. So I'm appealing to the federal government, and I'm appealing to the province to do something on our behalf.
Thanks to each of you.
Thank you, Rob.
For the time. Bye-bye. Carol Ann Meehan and Matthew Fleury, city councillors. Back after the news. With Professor Elliot Tepper, it's time for The World with the professor from Carleton University's Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, February 10th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, mostly cloudy, +3. Here's what's making news this hour. Interim Conservative leader Candice Bergen has called for an end to the ongoing trucker protests during the question period in the House of Commons.
I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together. The economy you want want to see reopen is hurting.
In previous weeks, Bergen had been supportive of the trucker protest to end COVID restrictions, but now she believes the point trying to be made by protesters has been heard. Ottawa police released a statement on Twitter regarding the flooding of their emergency phone lines. They tweeted that they are aware of a concerted effort to flood their 911 and non-emergency policing reporting line. They go on to say it is a crime to do so and that they will be tracking calls and charging anyone deliberately interfering with emergencies. Hydro Ottawa is experiencing a power outage in Kitchissippi Ward affecting almost 1,000 customers. The cause is still under investigation and crews are responding right now. And Ottawa's own Isabel Weideman claimed the silver medal in 5,000-meter speed skating at the Beijing Winter Games. This was her second medal of the Games after winning a bronze in the 3,000-meter event. 3 more medals were captured today as well. Elliot Grandin of Quebec took silver in the men's snowboard cross. Jack Crawford claimed bronze in men's alpine combined. And the mixed aerials team added another bronze to raise Canada's medal total to 12. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's 11:33. We're in the home stretch. Rob Snow Show on a Thursday morning. It has been an event-filled morning, and I just want to bring everybody, right up to date on everything that's been going on. We are 2 weeks tomorrow into the protest, the Freedom Convoy protest here in Ottawa. There were lots of developments this morning. We had a convoy of, I would call it several dozen, maybe 40, 50 light trucks, pickup trucks. They were circling the airport, kind of going up and down the airport parkway. You had the City of Ottawa YouTube site that was hacked this morning during the planning committee. The planning committee was live streamed. You know, all the committee meetings are virtual now over Zoom. And it went on for about 7 minutes, the live stream, and then it was hacked. And somebody put up, Ottawa has failed us, Jim Watson has failed us, Peter Slowly has failed us, he's the police chief, Justin Trudeau has failed us, and it just stayed up there until they took the whole feed down. Then you had the Ottawa police tweeting out that there's a concerted effort to flood the 911 emergency line, saying, don't do that, it's a crime, we're tracking your number, and we're going to try and find you. Also happening as well today, as you know, we have issues at border crossings, Windsor, Detroit being the most notable. That caused people to be detoured to the border crossing at Sarnia. Then there was a blockade at Sarnia. So that's causing all kinds of problems. And then the RCMP in Manitoba issued a tweet that there was a demonstration involving a large number of trucks and farm equipment blocking a port of entry for the Canada-U.S. border, port of entry called Emerson. So all of this has happened. We have significantly curtailed auto production here in the province of Ontario, which is Ontario's most important industry. And about, a half an hour ago, the interim Conservative leader, and the Conservatives have really been, championing this convoy, pounding the drum on ending mandates. Candice Bergen, from Manitoba, Candice Bergen stood in the House of Commons and said that the protests have to end.
I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together. The economy you want to see reopen is hurting.
The economy you want to see reopen is hurting. So that kind of brings us up to date on everything that's happening right now. Who knows what the world looks like at the end of business today. Joining us now with a look at the world, is Elliot Tepper, Carleton University International Affairs Professor, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, where he is Distinguished Senior Fellow. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Rob. Yes, this is our world.
Yeah. You know, and all the world's eyes are on Canada, and that doesn't happen very often, does it, Professor? That we're in the spotlight like this.
Well, I think there's so much discussion and so many different facets of this, and of course I'm trying to follow all of them, and among other things I'm a long-time Ottawan. I'm an Ottawan person. So I think you asked a really good question on air a while ago, and it's kind of the center of all this. Is this the new normal? Everybody's tired of this pandemic. Will we ever get back to normal? So I think if we can reframe the conversation a bit, given our perspective from the world outside looking in a sense, I think we've seen global trends now on our own streets, and that's kind of the essence of it. I think we see a lot of pandemic fatigue. We see populist protest, and something that hasn't been pointed out, but where the world is, there's a really big difference going on globally between how the Western democracies are handling and are about to handle this pandemic and the response to the pandemic, between our Western democratic societies and the East Asian responses. And that East Asian response, which I'm calling social trust, where there's a lot of social trust being maintained, a lot of it's being lost here, is likely to show up in very important ways in the future. Okay. I'm really interested in the populism angle, because in our federal politics, we've seen the Conservatives toss out their leader, a leader who tried, some say, to move the Conservative Party to a more moderate stance. The Conservatives would say, well, he tried to just become a liberal, and we're conservatives. We have seen in the days following Pierre Poilievre rise to the forefront, and he has been described as tapping into populist anger. I'm wondering, do you think that there's a rise of populism in Canada? Well, this is very interesting, and I think there's a rise of populism in Canada that is producing, among other things, in cooperation with some other global forces, what's happening in our streets, so that Canada is now providing a model for populist elsewhere. But I think we're just the latest evolution in an ongoing populist protest. So what is populism? And that's very, very hard to define. It's very slippery, very tricky. It comes down to, Rob, you know it when you see it, basically. But it's really...
You know it when you see it. Okay.
Well, you raised an example. And I'll just put it out there. The basic definition, the broad definition of populism, is that it's a sense of we the people against a populist elite. And the leader of that comes along and says, I represent the people against the populist elite. So broadly speaking, that's the parameters, but we have to remind ourselves there's populism of the left, there's populism of the right. So it's not just a left-wing, a right-wing populist effort, and that's how we're
Bernie Sanders. You could describe Bernie Sanders as a populist, right?
Yes, possibly so. I'll just put it out and ask this question, since you've raised it in particular personalities, and the way you phrased it was very careful, is Pierre Poilievre a populist, or is he tapping into something? Is Maxime Bernier a populist? Is he more genuinely a populist than, the current leadership candidates running for in the leadership of the party, Conservative Party? And has the Conservative Party had to kind of lean into the kind of option that Maxime Bernier now provides an electorate? There's a real genuine alternative. Do they need to wallow over to that side to prevent a lot of their base switching parties? So again, I'll just put it out, and you can use your own divining rod. Populist here.
Well, I don't know. 4 million views on Twitter for a Canadian. Now, we don't know if all those views are from Canada, but still 4 million views for a Canadian politician, an opposition politician. From Pierre Poilievre. Let's listen to a little bit there.
We will make Canadians the freest people on earth. With freedom to build a business without red tape,
or heavy tax. Freedom to keep the fruits of your labor and share them with loved ones and neighbors. Freedom from the invisible thief of inflation. Freedom to raise your kids with your values. Freedom to make your own health and vaccine choices. Freedom to speak without fear, and freedom to worship God.
Freedom.
In your own way.
Anyway, 9 times he says it in 3 minutes. 9 times.
And what we have at downtown Ottawa's Freedom Convoy, right?
Yeah, Freedom Convoy. Yeah,
but he did not mention that. But he did, this is the party of freedom. Is he tapping into, is he leaning into the kind of what I was calling the pandemic fatigue? Yeah. And it's very widespread. And I think one of the interesting things happening right now is that in terms of what's happening in downtown Ottawa, in terms of a COVID perspective, and are we all tired of it all? It's interesting to me that we have a super spreader event. If you take a look at the global pandemic figures potentially coming to our city, and it's not really being broadly focused upon that's what's happening. Other things are happening, the noise, the inconvenience, but our main shopping centers there are closed down because the owners cannot allow their own employees to potentially be targeted by people who are unvaxxed and unmasked, and then also subject to some harassment accordingly. But I think the fact that Trumpism, in effect, has come to Canada should also be noted, and that's, and I would define it very precisely. A public health issue, hey, what do we do about COVID, has been transformed into a political issue. And that kind of Trumpist, populist tap into we are the true people and the elites are letting you down. I think that's very much part of what's happening right now. Yeah. And as a result, Canada is now becoming the next global model for that evolving global phenomenon.
Okay. So when you say social trust, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I want to come down to that because what we see right now is that I think if we could put it this way, we have a bug that's playing chicken with the nerves of the world. And the Western democracies are starting to crumble. There's 2 terms here, the mandate, and we hear that in this protest, and the vaccine passport. And they are closely related, but not the same thing. Right now, there's going to be a situation very soon, and we see this, and I think it's a very important phenomenon, that support for the mandates across the board, and it's got very little to do with this particular protest, although, of course, this gives it an edge. You've got to have a vaccination or you can't do your job, and these truckers are saying, it's a condition of work, but we're not going to go along with it. But the end of a passport, vaccine passport, means that in the future, very possibly in our near future, there's going to be a mixture of people in our stores, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, people around us. Nobody's going to know who's vaccinated and who is not vaccinated because of this fatigue. As a result of that, I think there's going to be a lot of concern. People looking at each other saying, well, do you want to deal with me or you don't want to deal with me? This is a dissolver of social trust in communities. You just don't know. But take a look at what's happening around the world. We're not alone. The Western democracies aren't alone, and they're all beginning to buckle under this. We got to get rid of our mandates, democratic states in the U.S. included, across East Asia. And these are democracies, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. They have maintained, this is not a political issue, this is a health issue, and they are maintaining the necessary restrictions to keep their populations safe as they see it. And China, which is not a democracy, has a zero COVID policy, and they are implementing it ruthlessly. So in the future, we're going to come down to a situation where societies, unfortunately, are divided in the West over, hey, can I catch a bug?
But is that because, in these other countries that you mentioned, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, is that because there's greater trust in institutions, or?
I think it's a variety of things, but it's essentially... we have a lot of faith in our community. We have faith in each other, and we're going to they have not transmuted a public health issue into a political issue. It's not become a wedge issue. It's not become where, the leader of the opposition has to say in Parliament, yeah, I do, maybe I don't support, etc. In the long term, societies which maintain a high level of trust in themselves and their government, between the government and the people, and those that don't, it's got to show up geopolitically.
Okay, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about the Freedom Convoy from a national security perspective with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University's Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online. And the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Back, part 2 of The World. Talking about Freedom Convoy, national security, with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University's Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. So in terms of national security, and we think about the intelligence apparatus in this country, how do you view the Freedom Convoy, Professor?
Well, there's, I think, a number of issues that are raised here. A lot of things are, there's a lot of press comment, this was a planning failure. This was an intelligence failure. We should have known the intelligence. So, Rob, I was caught up in 2014, and I was 2 blocks away from Parliament Hill, up about a 5th or 6th floor. So I had a really panoramic view when our Parliament was attacked. But we then put out Bill C-51. dealt with the threat that was seen before us. We didn't have any planning for this threat. Those threats were terrorism, international terrorism, global terrorism, and cyber issues that got tucked into that. We have, first and foremost, kind of a big gap. We have a federal government which relies on a city police force. Now, around the precinct of Parliament, particularly after 2014, I mean, you and I may remember, I remember when Pierre Trudeau just liked to wander out the front door of Parliament and would wander down. And then some people, we took things very low-key.
Oh, yeah.
Times have changed. So I think the first thing is, I don't think this was an intelligence failure, we didn't see these trucks coming, but a planning failure and maybe a structural planning failure. There seems to be a big gap, and we need to fill that.
But I mean, we knew it was coming.
Yes.
We knew they were angry.
Yes.
We knew it was going to be big.
Yes.
There's the potential for some of them to have weapons.
Yes.
There was already a man who had come from Western Canada, Corey Hearn, tried to drive his truck onto the grounds of Rideau Hall. He had several weapons on. He pleaded guilty to 8 criminal charges. Right?
Not part of this convoy.
Not part of this convoy, but it highlights, there are threats. I was thinking because it was on the news every night for a week, I was thinking, well, surely to goodness the intelligence agencies will know. If there are bad guys with bad intentions, they'll know who it is.
Well,
the Mounties are probably embedded with them, is what I was thinking, but now I'm not so sure that may have been the case.
Well, this is the gap. We seem to... Yes, I suspect there is a lot of intelligence coming in about, something's happening out west and it's coming our way. But we don't have an apparatus at this moment ready to deal with it. And I think another aspect of it, and it's something you just touched on, is there's a big security threat that's being advertised. And Matt Gurney has a column on this.
Yeah.
This is a big ad that tells anybody interested at home or abroad that our national capital and our key infrastructures, like our bridges, are not really well protected in the sense that it needs to be. There seems to be nobody much in charge, that we have a loosely organized, decentralized, multi-jurisdictional set of authorities.
Yeah.
That makes us vulnerable. We have a weak organizing center, and we are under-resourced in terms of response.
All right, speaking of that, because there's been a lot of criticism for our chief of police, Peter Sloly.
Yep.
He's kind of the fall guy here, if anybody is getting it hard. You mentioned Matt Gurney. He was part of a podcast, a Big Story podcast, which is part of City News. And he was on talking about his travels around Ottawa and his reflections on his stay here, touring the various sites of the convoy. And he's, as Chief Sloly takes a lot of heat for the police response, Matt Gurney's been arguing, well, I actually think Chief Sloly gets it. It's that he can't convince higher-ups the nature of the threat. So let's listen to a little bit of this here together.
Whatever criticisms you want to make of Chief Sloly, and believe me, I could make some, he's not stupid. He is very well spoken. He is savvy. He is a good communicator. He is telling people what is going on there in the most blunt way he probably feels like he can get away with. And I don't think he's being listened to. My impression is that officials in Ottawa, officials in Ontario, the Ontario government, and particularly at the federal level, are still not really understanding what they're up against in Ottawa, that they think this is an unusually raucous or persistent protest. That's partially what's going on, but there is that other element that's taken root there as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Matt has been saying, look, it's Chief Sloly who has said there may not be a policing solution to it. It's Chief Sloly who said, I need 1,800 more bodies. It's Chief Sloly who has said, I may need the military. Right? What do you think of all of that?
Well, this comes back to the fact that we do not have the kind of structures and institutions in place to respond to the kind of threat we now see. We have a weak organizing center. We have too many cooks in the kitchen and not enough top chefs. We have not taken this as seriously as we should. There's another aspect I would like. This is special pleading in a way, but we have not invested in our intellectual capital. We don't invest anymore in area studies, so we get caught when something happens like Afghanistan. But we also are not investing in our security and defense studies. So when you're asking questions like this, there's just fewer responses in Canada, and we need to really beef that up. I mean, basically, there's one big central message out of all this, Rob.
Yep.
We've got to step up our game.
Okay, we will end it on that note. Thank you, Professor.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, be well. I love the conversation today. Bye-bye. Professor Elliot Tepper, that's the world with a major focus on the world looking at us. Back tomorrow. We'll do the Friday free-for-all tomorrow during the talkback hour. That should be an adventure. 9 o'clock, okay? Sam LaPrade right after the noon news. This is City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com